Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. In the last video, we took a look at the Mark of the Unicorn Ultralight Mark IV, as I've recently purchased it to handle my audio interface needs both for work and for making these videos. That being the solution that works for me at the moment, though, it's not going to be the right solution for everybody. Perhaps you want something that's a little more tactile, something with some physical controls. You might need to be able to just walk up to the mixer and make a quick adjustment on the fly without needing to involve computers or an app or anything like that. I like the idea of having just a simple mixer on the desktop sometimes. In a lot of real world situations, that's what we do end up with. A lot of broadcast type workstations, you might just have a small mixer like this. Editing suites especially, you'll have something like this, and it does help. Getting equipment connected for testing and things like that is something I deal with constantly, so the idea of having all your I/O right here on top is really helpful, and anything that can help me save a few seconds in hunting down an adapter, which I don't really need to do for something like this because it has so many different options between balanced, unbalanced, all sorts of different inputs and outputs from XLR down to 3.5mm and even Bluetooth. I don't have to spend a lot of time searching for adapters, which is excellent. So with that in mind, we've got the PreSonus AR8 on the bench today to take a first look at. And this is a hybrid mixer, primarily analog in its design, but with some digital features integrated into it that allow you to use it as a USB audio interface and also use the onboard digital recorder to record a stereo mix. Right now, as of May 2018, you can pick one of these up for just around $399 here in the US. That's delivered. Let's take a quick look at the features. So starting with channels 1 and 2, you get a microphone input along with a 1/4-inch input that is switchable between a 1/4-inch tip-ring sleeve balanced line level input and a high impedance instrument level input using this switch right here, and that lets you plug things like a bass guitar in directly, or other instruments you would normally use a direct box for can go right in there. No direct box necessary if you're nice and close. You then have a signal light, you've got your gain control for each channel, and you have a low cut switch that engages an 18 dB per octave roll off from 100 Hertz on down. Very handy for getting rid of mechanical noise and things like that in your recordings or even in live situations to avoid feedback. EQ in this unit is very simple with a high, mid, and low. The high and low are shelving EQs, the high being at 12K and the low being at 80 Hertz. In the middle is a filter at 2.5K. So essentially just low, mid, and high there. You're getting a single aux end. This is a pre-fade aux that's labeled for use with a monitor, something like a stage monitor or an in-ear monitor in the studio or live again, and that's by default routed out to the aux output over here labeled monitor. Then you've got a post-fade effects send, which works quite nicely. With most built-in effects like this, I tend to think that less is more, and as long as you don't go and completely overcook it, using just a little bit of some of these effects can be very nice and can definitely add to your mix. And by default, the effects send is routed both to the internal digital effects processor and to this aux output labeled effects. Each channel also has a pan or balance control there, a mute switch, a mute light to let you know what's happening on or off, an overall level control, and a PFL switch. Channel 3 and 4 is a stereo channel here, and unlike channels 1 and 2 where you can switch in an instrument level input, these two 1/4-inch inputs are line level only, and you can hook up things like a playback machine or a digital keyboard. Again, same low cut, same EQ, same routing, all the rest of that stuff is the same. Then channels 5 and 6, this is where it starts to get interesting. Again, this is a stereo channel with line level inputs, but here you have the ability to switch in instead returns 3 and 4 from the USB audio interface. Our next channel over is our super channel, and what that allows us to do is that gives us some unbalanced RCA inputs here for hooking up something like a CD player or a tape deck. We've got a 3.5mm jack here for hooking up like an aux cord, as the kids call it, 3.5mm consumer grade input there. And then we've got a switch here that can switch us between the USB channels 1 and 2 on the audio input playback. So channels 1 and 2, your master output outputs from your computer, if you're using this as an audio interface, will come down this channel, or the playback from the internal SD card. So you can play back recordings you've made with the recorder, or you can load up that SD card with music and use it to play back like break music. So that's pretty neat. And then if you want to involve the Bluetooth connection, you simply just turn that on, pair it with your phone. With my iPhone, it paired very easily, and you can play back via Bluetooth from any supported device. The only limitation with the Super channel is that you cannot route it to the effects end. So as you can see, this channel 7/8 would be your USB returns channel 1 and 2. And then if you wanted to have the next, if you needed channels 3 and 4, you needed 4 discrete outputs from your computer, you can have those come back out here on this 3/4 using that button there. So you would end up with channels 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the returns. You get dedicated controls here for the overall effects level. You've got an overall control send here to the monitor, to your aux1 monitor output with an AFL, so you can solo that. And then you've got individual controls for a solo or PFL level. Your control room output here gets its own controls, and your headphone output also gets its own level control. So that's very nice to be able to have this as kind of the command center of your editing studio or something like this where you're doing a voiceover for a video. Now for the digital stuff, to go a little more in depth, we can see on the block diagram that the ADC picks off right after the low cut switch and right before the EQ, where it converts the analog signal to digital for routing over USB. Now all of the AR series consoles allow you to access all of the input channels over the USB 2 connection, along with the left-right stereo mix. The internal recorder can be used to record only the left-right stereo mix. We can see again in the block diagram where the ADC picks off just before the main meters here on the master bus, and then that feeds both the internal stereo SD card recorder as well as channels 7 and 8 by default of the USB audio interface. Now you can switch that to be channels 1 and 2 of the USB send with this button right here, and that lights up to let you know you're doing that. So some good flexibility there in routing between the computer, the stereo recorder, and the console, and anything else you might have hooked up. And there's also a foot switch option there where you can plug in a foot switch, either latching or non-latching, to defeat or enable the effects unit. Hooking up a computer is really simple. It's as simple as just connecting it up, and whatever software you're using, you'll see all the inputs and outputs listed. Very, very basic. So that's it. That's a first look at the AR8. I'll be keeping this one on the desk for a little while here, and I'll continue to use it daily to see how it works. And I look forward to hearing your questions and things you'd want to have tested or answered or asked directly to PreSonus. Please send me your questions, and I'll be happy to let them answer them directly. And as I get to use it more, I will be putting together a full review like I normally do. I usually do the first look and then a full review once I've had a chance to really work with it and figure out how everything works. Leave your questions, your comments, your suggestions, anything you'd like me to test or ask PreSonus directly in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more of these types of videos. This channel and the DcSoundOp.com website are made possible by the support of viewers like you and those folks who visit the website and join the team on Patreon. So thanks so much for your help, and I'll see you next time. So this is just a reference. This is the exact same SM57, but through a Tascam DR70D. So that's it for a reference on the 57 in the exact same room, same desk, everything else identical compared to what you've been hearing on the StudioLive.